session, and we're going to have what is a conversation, basically, between scenes from the Revenge song. So I'll leave it there and let Brenda do the rest.
So for those of you who were able to catch the PowerPoint and the tiny, teeny, teeny video that I made for it about today's presentation, there is a show still ongoing until April 14th called Revenge Song. It is about a queer, swashbuckling opera singer, French opera singer, and it is a riot. And I worked with 75% of the cast on vocals. I am the voice instructor at Oregon Shakespeare Festival. I worked on this project as well as Once on This Island. And I'm really happy to bring a list of 5 guests to you to talk about their general experience. But we have a few scenes that we were allowed to show you from the watch party. I encourage you, if you can, to check it out at OSF. It was quite the experience, and I'm very pleased with how it turned out.
So I'm going to allow our guests in.
Yeah.
Hello.
So the camera is showing this one. So you're seeing my husband.
I got to switch over. Hang on. There we are.
Is it? Can you even see me? It's very dark. So, oh hello. So today we have from left to right, not including myself, we have Royer, Dan Elise, we know Reed. Rena and David, illustrious cast members and musicians. We have 3 of the Revenge Song band here. And thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I think the students will really appreciate your input. I encouraged a lot of the students to ask a lot of questions, but I would like to start with just a few scenes, if you don't mind watching yourselves. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's do it. Let's start with our first scene.
I'm failing technical correct. Here we are. This and share. Here we go.
No. Yes. Oh, finally, the most important thing to remember as you watch this clearly European tale is
We're French, motherfuckers, we're French. Forget what you see, it'll all make sense. The way we speak, you parle français. Before this play, it'll sound anglais. Don't be confused, you monolingual fools. Just roll with the punches, let's break some rules. The 17th century, 1695, we all French as fuck, like a side of French fries.
We rude AF.
Yeah!
Take a B.O. cause
We are French!
we speak really sexy, but we're bad in bed. We only please ourselves cause
We are French!
so sit back, yo. Here we go, bienvenue to the Frenchiest French show. Suspend your disbelief, ignore our skin for no matter what you see.
We are French!
We applause. The French are back.
All right. So that's
say. I know that I can't speak for every single character, but as far as my character, Julie, you know, historically she was a white person, and when Queen wrote the play, it's in the script that it's supposed to be cast as a person of color, and it's very part of the Vampire Cowboys like mission statement to give a voice to these people. And then I think also just what we see in media a lot is like sometimes white stories are supposed to be kind of known as universal, and when people of color get opportunities, they're often having to like fight with ninja swords or like, you know, tribal sticks and stuff. And so to say, you know, this person's story is going to be told by a person of color, I think gives access to people of color to be telling these stories as opposed to being more universal. So that's what I can say on that.
Thank you so much, Raina. There we go. This, to me, from the research about Vampire Cowboys, the theater that produced this is one of the biggest goals for Vampire Cowboys. Am I correct? Yeah, the podcast that was included in my PowerPoint and video for the students. This was the representation was really a big deal in the playwright and the playwright's telling of the story. Let's continue on with our next scene, and then we'll have a discussion about that. Unless anybody else had something else to contribute to that conversation. If not, I can't see it.
I will say really quickly, you know, I just realized this actually reading another article that in the program there's a litany of trigger warnings, right, and warnings for the content. But at the end it says most offensively cultural appropriation. And that's something that I've been really grappling with in this process and this play. And I find it really interesting that that is actually part of their mission and that they named that in creating it, right? And I think what I've been able to glean from that is this idea of shared experience. And I think even now, I mean, we're talking about France, 17th century, and even now when we think about France, when we think about European countries, often immigrant experiences are marginalized or ignored, right? Like the fact that there is, found in my research, a huge population of Nigerians who came to France, to the point where, and they've then created their own language, right? This sort of mix of, but we don't really take that into account when we experience these different European parts. And so I love that line at the end, like, this clearly European, it's, you know, this thing of like, you know, I'm African American and I'm Black, but you wouldn't necessarily know that I'm not European, but then you usually get some sort of response that, although you think it's going to be this thing based on historical, actually in the time as well to have these more indigenous or diasporic parts of music, right? That we still brought over, not just what we imagine Renaissance to be. And so, I mean, of course, with Vampire Cowboys, we're never going to get that depth like in conversation, you know. But in my own like understanding of moving away from this idea of like, well, why are we telling stories this way when these are the people that we see on stage? Moving from that universality, I think, is what they're going after.
Thank you for your insight, Donna. That's really great. I want to move on to the next scene.
Oh, we're just in time. Oh, my goodness. Great.
So this is what you're into, huh?
Oh, do cows shit in the woods, Julie?
What?
Yes.
I just never pegged you as a theater guy.
Julie, this is not theater, okay?
My dude, is that not a stage?
Yes, it is.
Are these not some of the most uncomfortable looking seats you've ever seen?
This guy says yes.
And are they not filled with well-meaning white people?
You got me there, Jules.
My dude, this is theater.
Yeah, well, it shares all the outward aesthetics of theater. But theater at its core is an oral exercise of talking heads spouting wordy poetics about the human existence. This is not that. That is pop culture for nerds. This is pop art for the sophisticated, the classy, the well-groomed. This, my dear, is the opera.
Oh, damn.
Come on, show's about to start. I got us the best seats in the house.
Ah.
Well then, hello. It is me, your host, Madame de Santerre. Well, thank you. So, you are probably wondering what has transpired since last we met. Well, obviously you went for a drink. Or three. And you did not share. You're naughty. I will have to spank you later. But as for Julie, well, she's made some very interesting life choices. She's put on a dumb dress to date a dumb man, all because her dumb heart got broken.
Hey, you're happy, right?
Yeah, Albert, I'm happy.
What a dum-dum. But tonight, all of this will soon change, as you will see. Right now, it is my pleasure to introduce you all to the one, the only, Claude Duménil.
Love is not enough. The thought is so absurd. It seeps into your heart, completely wrecks your world. Love's a drug that kills. It'll catch you in its trap. The more it takes from you, the more your life turns to crap. But who are you? Is this really you? We all long for love, and she is so divine. She puts her hands on you. She makes you feel sublime. We all long for love, and she is so divine. But when she's gone, it's all gone. Is that so bad? Is that so wrong? Lust is not enough. It's just a simple feel.
I want to take a moment. I noticed that the chat box has 15 messages, and are there emergencies that I need to address from?
We couldn't hear anything. You've heard it before, it's okay.
You guys know that song, right?
I never get to hear that number.
Sorry, I won't unmute it. I was trying to avoid feedback issues. Sorry about that.
So we of the group. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 guests. I forgot because read. Of the 6 guests, we have 3 band members, and 2 of them are also part of the cast. On the video and the PowerPoint
Yeah. Um, um, it's been a blast. I think this is by far the easiest job I think I've ever had in my life. Just because like I didn't have to memorize any of the bass music. I've got my score sitting right there. So for the majority of the show, I'm just sitting there thumping notes, and then I don't even have to walk onto the stage. You know. Yeah, and that number is it's it's a joy. You know, I have to pick the scenery out of my teeth at the end of the night. And then I go back upstairs and I play bass for the rest of the show. And I feel guilty about that a little bit because everyone else in the show works so much harder than I do with all the 1,000 costume changes they all have to do and all the sword fighting and choreography. I have the easiest job in all of Ashland by far. So it's been a blast for me. That's all I can say about that.
Well, thank you. And anything from Reed or Royer about also being musicians in the band and then going back and acting, or Reed, your work throughout during the rehearsal process?
I play the bass for David's song, and I'm very proud of that, and almost nobody notices.
Oh my god, I didn't notice.
Nobody knows.
I thought you were built for ukulele.
There was a ukulele moment in the show that got cut. And so, but I do play the bass for David's song, and then when they're sneaking in, they have the sneaky music, and that's actually like a little riffy thing. And yeah, it's my little secret. But I really like it because I like shows in which a lot of different parts of my brain are used at different times. It just feels exciting and consuming in a way that I really enjoy. And this show definitely accomplishes that because you use singer brain, actor brain, dancer brain, and now my electric bass brain. So yeah, it's great. I love it. And I love that I have this secret other job that nobody knows I do.
That's great. Thanks. And Reed, just to pick your brain because this is very stylistic music, and you are the percussionist for this show. What do you channel as a percussionist for this whole show and the different genres there?
Yeah, I really like that question because this is unlike any show I've done, you know, and probably maybe for most of us here. Especially from my perspective, I haven't played this type of music since I was like really young, like, you know, early college or something when you're just like having fun, like going heavy on drums. We learned to like kind of stray from that in school, essentially. And, you know, hold back a little bit and play with the ensemble, whatever it is. And this ensemble's like requires really going strong, going out there. And actually I remember during the rehearsal process, it was requested of me to really play super heavy, super hard. I bought heavier sticks I've not used, you know, before. And then when we actually dialed in sound during the tech rehearsals, the sound team like requested that I tone it back a whole lot. So it's like trying to like, okay, I'm gonna go super out there, and now I'm gonna, okay, change back to my other sticks and I actually learned different places to play on the drums, so it's not like the snare drum in particular, so it's not as poppy, and I can still get like a lot of sound out of it, and a lot of, you know, since I'm also, people can see me and they can't always see the musicians in a musical. They see me, like I make sure I can still do some visual things, and I'm not just like sitting back there and just thinking around. I make sure that's like that it's also part of the experience for everyone else, seeing like this rock band that's up there, and yeah, and just being like a big heavy either metal band or punk band, hip hop group. Yeah, this music is extremely fun to play. And you can tap into like, I try to imagine like I'm playing in Kiss, you know, for the first couple songs, or I'm playing in some sort of punk like maybe two for other tunes, yeah, or just big rock ballad stuff. It's a blast to play, and really unlike anything I've done, especially in the theater world.
It's really awesome. So for those of you who have not seen the show, I'm guessing all of you haven't yet, but you will. At the Lizzie, they have, unlike most of the other shows at OSF, they have the band right there, like up above, and go and that's how we're able to watch it like a rock show while everybody else is acting and singing, and it's simultaneously just a rockin' concert as well as acting, and I love that about this. It's like most of you have been saying, it's unlike most things that I've ever seen before, and so that is awesome. I want to move on to the next clip so that we have time for questions from the house.
I still love you from beyond.
Nice. Come back tomorrow. We'll put you on, see what action we can get.
Wow. What was your name again?
My name, it's Marie-Louise Thérèse de Santerre. Remember, I told you it was my theater? Keep up, people.
Well, that is a very long name.
Well, you can call me Marie.
It's really nice to meet you, Marie.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you, too. Oh, fuck.
I should wear makeup tonight, right? I believe that is what stage performers do. I don't know, though. What do you think?
Jules? What are your intentions?
To not look like a clown?
With that Marie woman. What do you intend to do with her?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I saw the way you looked at her, okay? This is what got you into trouble with Emily. You can't do this again.
Do what again?
You know what I'm talking about.
I'm just going to do a job, okay? A job I think I might actually be really good at. Please don't make this a bigger deal than it is.
So you don't want to hook up with her?
I don't know. You asked.
I thought we were something, Jules.
Whoa. We are. You're my best friend.
I thought we were more.
We are. Sometimes.
I've invested in you, in us. Does that not mean anything?
You saw who I was the first time you met me.
Julie, you were dressed like a man when I first met you.
I am like a man. Albert,
That's crazy.
How can you say that? What are you doing? Oh, what the fuck?
Marry me, Julie.
Are you serious?
This is what you deserve. Oh. This is the life you should have. Oh. Be my wife. Wait, don't say what you're gonna say, okay? I get it, you like women. It's the 1690s, I'm cool with that. But all I'm saying is, what you want in private is not what you get to be in public. Look, just want what you want, but can you not love me too? Julie, I can take care of you. You're safe here with me. You're in my house now. Julie.
You're just as bad as the rest of them. You act nice, and you say nice things.
I am
but
nice.
You don't even care who I am.
That's not true, Julie.
Then what is this? What are you doing right now?
I love you.
No, oh, I'm sorry. That's not what this is for me. I'm with you because you're harmless. Because you can't hurt me. I won't let you.
You don't mean that.
I am not the girl of your dreams, Albert. I don't know what I am, but I am not that.
God, what are you doing?
I can't stay here. This isn't me, I'm sorry.
What? And she is? Julie, just because she's a woman doesn't mean it's gonna be any different. Look, you don't have to love me, but if you're ever gonna love anyone, you're gonna have to risk yourself more than you are now.
Whatever. I'm not a king or queen. I ain't done anything. I don't care about no books or wars. I'm not a prince or lord. Don't got medals or awards. I'm not something history adores. This world ain't so nice. It's a toss of the dice. Cause the men are always giving me shit. They wanna censor me, Julie fucking Daubigny. So I kick them all in the dick. If I die today, I want everyone in the whole world to say this girl breaks all the rules. This girl don't suffer fools. This girl, she stands tall. This girl fights through them all. This girl breaks all the rules. All the rules. You know? Men are always telling me how I fight like a girl. I tell them if they...
Raina, you killed this. It's awesome. I want, but other than the wonderful vocals here, this whole scene that I picked out is some uncomfortable moments in the life of a genderqueer person. And what I love, especially the Raina and the two understudies for the main character, I want to know how much what it felt like to you to play this character in her experience and the struggles through her gender identity. So that's open to Danelise and Raina. So, fight.
What a question. Woo! What was the question?
So, if I may, you identify as she/they, and what's depicted in this part of the show is possibly some of the more uncomfortable scene where maybe Julian's character isn't the bad guy, and maybe you're the bad guy, and everybody's hurting, and how does it feel to embody and work with this character as you?
It's been wild. Yeah, this scene in particular, it was one of the original audition pieces, and I remember, I think I cried the first time I read it because it was just so very familiar. I came out as non-binary not too long ago and had dated a lot of boys, and I had only dated one while I was out as non-binary, and he continued to identify as straight, and so like I'm very familiar with kind of this thing of when Julie tells Albert, I'm not the girl of your dreams, I don't know what I am, but I'm not that. I think that's like a big thing because I think there's a lot of societal tropes and conditioning that we're all fed as children, and I think a lot of men go out looking for, you know, their dream girl, and sometimes a non-binary person can look a lot like your dream girl, especially if you're not willing to look deeper. And especially if you're okay with that person changing themselves to please you, or if you're not like cognizant of when they're doing that. And so, you know, that scene is actually very hard to perform because, especially on nights where we have maybe certain older people who don't get it as much. I think when young, like, queer people see it, they're like, I know exactly what this is. But some older people, like, when Julie tells Albert that he's her best friend, sometimes we get, like, groans from the audience. And I'm up on stage just like, no, that's not a... what I think is really special about this play is it's actually one of the first times I've ever seen compet or compulsory heterosexuality explored in any story. And I think Albert is explored through like a very generous and sympathetic lens, and I think it's very powerful putting the scene out there because it's not unfamiliar to, especially I feel like genderqueer people who are assigned female at birth and have dated men, you know. And what I really love is when I do Girl Breaks All the Rules, you know, initially I was like, I hate that I have to call myself a girl throughout the song because like, I'm not a girl. And then it became kind of this almost weirdly empowering thing where I misgender myself with a wink. And I actually feel very visibly non-binary on stage when I do that number, whether or not people are actually, whether or not everyone is getting it. I feel like enough people get it. That having this scene where she's, you know, stuck in this tight pink leather jacket and she rips it off and then she's getting to just be an androgynous rock star on stage, it's very cathartic. And so yeah, the process of working on that scene was, we put a lot of effort into it, and we had a lot of conversations about like what the scene was about and if like dating Julie is inherently queer for Albert, and like, you know, what kind of relationship did these two even have, and we didn't actually even get to like ultimately the clearest answers about like what their relationship contained, but that's definitely one of my favorite scenes just because I think it's really well done and it's really important, and getting to kind of shed the scene with the musical number afterwards has always been very, very cathartic, and so that's been a lot of my experience, and so with that I'll open it up to Dee.
But before Dan leaves, I wanted to mention, Raina, when you said second act, I was like, I know I gotta put that scene in here. Like, I can't not put that scene in here. So I'm excited to hear, Dan, what you have to say, too.
Yeah, I mean, I think Raina hit a lot of the things. Yeah, I also like really identify with the experience of like feeling like I was always, and for me, I identify as gender queer, gender fluid, and that doesn't mean I want to necessarily like reject my womanhood for me personally, but it's just like, I feel like I am all of it. Like I'm like, I want my femininity to feel full. I want my masculinity to feel full, and I want all of the ways that those things blend together to feel full. And so when and as someone who's also like, I've dated cis men as well as trans people and women, and I think there was something like when I really started to come into my queerness of feeling like for the first time someone was really seeing all of that in a way that like when I was sort of dating just cis men earlier in my life, like that they were never really going to get that. And not to say I think it's impossible for them to, because I'm currently dating a cis man who I do feel like really gets that and like calls me, you know, like sweet boy and uses, you know, different pronouns and different span across the gender spectrum. And so I think that like, yeah, this thing is really hard because Albert and Julie do have like a lot of beauty in their relationship, right? It's like, but it's just they're not on the same page about it, because Julie does love Albert, I believe. I think it could be easy to take a pass at the script without adding layers to it and think like, oh, Julie's kind of like using Albert to like stay in his place and whatever for him, but she feels like he's above her, and she wants them to be like, he's like you're my dude, you're my guy, like, and we get into shenanigans together. They're like, but but she doesn't want to take it romantically because in this right in this telling of Julie's story, it's like she's not interested in men and cis men at all. And so I have love for this person, and I have a lot of care for this person and a sense of like siblinghood with this person, and he wants something from me that I just can't give him. And then that moment of like Julie saying, I am like a man, like why don't you see it? Why don't you get it? I'm clearly gay. Like and that he's like, he tells her that's crazy. Like that is like deep betrayal, right? That is like such a moment of like, damn, like by the end of this scene, it's like really finally settling into Julie in a conscious way that like, you don't see me. You don't see me in my full self. You just see me in the way you want to see me, which is as this like hot girl that you want to date. And yes, like I know there are ways we laugh together and adventures you've had, and like you have a love for me, but like that love is only ever going to feel half full if you don't see all of me, all of my gender expression, all of who I really can be and who I want to be. See me the way I see me, please. I feel like that's what that scene is asking, and Albert like can't get there in that moment, and that's why there's like such this big conflict.
Thank you, Deanna. There was one more scene that I wanted to show, but we've been doing a lot of good talking, and I wanted to open it up to other questions from the students, and we will light your face with Dr. Keller's phone so that they can see you. But if you have a question, maybe let's make a cue here, and then like face here, and we'll light you, and then it'll be open to the panel to answer questions.
Does anybody have any questions for the panel? Come on up.
Make a cue. Let's go.
I'll go first, so other people feel like they can go first. I'll do a little squat. Okay. Hi. So I was just wondering,
Who are you?
I'm Eric. I'm a senior here at SOU, and
Senior what? Voice major.
Oh, voice major, yeah. Anyways, as someone who's just getting back into theater themselves, I'm learning that it's getting actually pretty hard to balance like lifestyle and all this like rehearsal time and all that kind of, like energy that you have to put into this kind of stuff. So what are some suggestions you have to like just cram everything in your day and still be able to get out sane?
Practical question.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, I'm gonna go over now.
All of my friends here hear me talk about my sacred cone of peace and joy. And obviously those are just words and a concept that are not concrete, but you have to figure out what that is for you. For me, it looks like I really don't make any plans before 10 in the morning. And I walk my dog and I have my breakfast and I listen to the Indigo Girls and I do my puzzle and I drink my coffee. It's like finding those moments in the day, even if they're early in the morning or late at night, where you can maintain some sort of like centering, calm, familiar thing. Because doing theater is a lot of venturing into the unfamiliar, which is very like taxing on your heart and your soul if you're just constantly pushing yourself, especially acting and doing theater is an incredibly vulnerable, heart forward act. And so you have to take care of your heart. It's not just, make sure that you find time to exercise or find time to do your chores or whatever. For me, it's just as much of a spiritual practice as anything. So if you start noticing like, oh, this felt very peaceful and joyful to me, start putting that in the category of like, those are things that fall in my cone, and then protect the cone. That's my advice.
Thank you, Royer.
Okay. Hi, my name is Holden. I'm a sophomore music and theater double major. I've been doing theater for a while. I guess my question is primarily for Raina, but it's not really exclusively just to them. My favorite part about doing theater and acting is developing the character and like learning about who the person is that I have to be playing. But for you specifically playing a historical figure and like having to do all this research about a real person, what did that look like for you? And then how did you kind of take your own interpretation of the character versus who the actual person was?
I love this question, and I have a really good answer. I did as much research as I could about Julie Daubigny before I got out here, and then additionally, our dramaturg, Regina Victor, kind of had a lot of facts posted on the wall about Julie's life and such. Something that was very interesting for me, though, was, a lot of, in this play, we explore Julie's gender identity, and we cannot ask this real human being what their gender identity was. And then additionally, we didn't see these scenes today, and so if you guys haven't seen the play, this is news to you, so trigger warning. But there is, we explore also sexual abuse that Julie went through in her teen years, because in real life she was kept as a maid of sorts in a very rich man's home for many years. We explore that, and so with exploring a real human being's gender expression and abuse history, it was very important to me that I approach this with the most care and love possible, without the opportunity to speak to this real person or anyone who knew her. And so a lot of what that came down to for me is actually, it was quite spiritual, because so we each, we have two parents, and then they have two parents, that's four grandparents, and the more you kind of keep going out by generation and generation, we actually accumulate hundreds and thousands of people who had to exist for us to exist. And if you go back farther enough, we're pretty much all related. We're all made up of the same stuff. And so a lot of what it came down to me was connecting to myself, and connecting to the parts of me that are the same as this person, and then being able to bring that to the person. I definitely brought a lot of myself, but then additionally, sometimes the director had to be like, you have to allow her to not be a good example. You have to allow her to be a hurt person who's hurting someone in this scene. And so, yeah, a lot of my process of building the character was actually just about connecting to myself and connecting to other people, and what connects us all to this person. Because honestly, if we go back farther enough, we're all probably sharing cells with Julie Daubigny. So a lot of it just came down to what can I bring to this character? And that's different than what Dee brings to this character. It's different than what our other understudy, Jay, brings to the character. And it's all, when it came down to it, the story is about love, and as much as this character is pursuing revenge, it ends on a note of she has found family, and she has found love, and she is triumphant in herself. And so then connecting to those drives within oneself, I felt brought me character. And then additionally, I would say I also drew from other characters I saw. I would say Amanda Bynes, and She's the Man, was a very big inspiration for my Julie, as well as Rue in Euphoria, and several others. But that was a lot of what it came down to, and a lot of it was also just allowing my brain to turn off when I was in it and being present. And I'm lucky enough that I work with some of the most talented friggin' actors in the business, some of them here, and just being able to look at you guys and breathe and be present did a lot of what I just needed for me. Just being able to be in that moment with the other actors. So yeah, that's a lot of it. Thank you for the great question.
Another question, Cameron.
Hello, I'm Cameron. I'm a fifth-year music major here. I had a question regarding subtextual themes. I know often a good story and a well-developed story has more to say to an audience than just what is plain text and what is primary. I was wondering if there were any less obvious secondary messages or themes that particularly resonate with any one of you. Thank you.
Fight.
I think I'll start. I mentioned this earlier. Part of Vampire Cowboy's brand is this comic book approach you know, this sort of pop art. And a lot of that is quippy and like one line, and at first read can really sound like it can read like a comic book, you know, which the ideas are there, but they're succinct and can seem very nascent. My character has a line, which it happens in a very strange monologue that's generally pretty grounding. And then at the end, I say, you know, sometimes in real life, justice is not always served. And I think that being a black body saying that line is clear, is clear. And I don't weight it. It's not, I mean, the monologue is up here, so that's not a moment of down here. And then the next line is about like, well, anyway, this thing, right? And I think that there's something interesting in that allows us to sort of experience these things in this play, these things that can seem harrowing, like sexual assault, right? And having to suppress your gender, and being coerced by religious norms to not be yourself and to hide yourself. These things are really deep, and each of them could be their own tragic tale. And instead, there's like a buoy on top of it always that gets this fun punk rock thing. And I think that that's kind of what being BIPOC and punk and queer is about, you know, is that you experience this life where it's like it could be a tragedy. Any moment of any day could be a tragedy, you know, being of color walking through Ashland. And there's so much joy and light and things on top of it that sometimes just the humanity of the moment is enough, you know. And so when you talk about the subtext, I think that there's just such power in their writing that they get to that nucleus without having to name it. And in earlier drafts, we went through many drafts of the play. In earlier drafts, there was this monologue at the end that was basically like, well, in summation, here are the things that you're supposed to learn. And then it got like more and more obvious and more heavy and weighty. And it was like, fuck that. Like, sorry about the language. There's a lot of languages in this show. It was like, fuck that. Like, it's all there already, right? And then that way we get to have our own experience of what that subtext is. And so unfortunately, /fortunately, we don't have talkbacks for this show, but I know Royer, you do sometimes with students. I'd love to hear what their takeaways are, what their understanding of these subtextual themes are, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's always really interesting to talk to the student groups. Some of them, I feel a little weird because I know that most of y'all haven't seen it yet, so I don't want to like spoil too many things. But they're quite critical of the play, but in a very smart, not like dismissive way. Like they have a lot of thoughts about it, and to me, that is such a victory because, you know, it's not a story that you walk away from and go like, I know exactly what I was supposed to take away from this. You're not spoon-fed, you know what I mean? You're not spoon-fed a moral necessarily. But my favorite thing that has happened is the kids that come to it and say like, I finally have a dream role, because in theater, there isn't a lot going on for the queers, especially if you're not like a cis gay dude, which is not like well represented, but it's certainly more represented than, you know, a gender queer Black person, for instance. And so getting to see people be able to see themselves in these heroic comic book stories is just a powerful experience in and of itself. So I think that's one of the most powerful things we got going on in the play, is the representation that exists in it.
We have to stop because a lot of the students go to choir right after this. So just one more question. So I'll try to be fast.
There's a non-binary teacher. I don't know if you've heard about this. A kindergarten teacher and his mom's group like went to town on a witch hunt for this non-binary teacher. It was really disheartening. It's been disheartening to watch this. This Facebook moms group has been going on these witch hunts. I know that the Oregon Shakespeare Festival has a new director, and I just read an article that she has to walk around with security because she's trying to make BIPOC and more contemporary plays. And so never heard of your play, so I think this is absolutely amazing. And I'm wondering what if you guys are receiving any pushback for what you're creating? Great question.
Yes. Most of the time it's pretty innocuous. Like I was walking literally yesterday and someone said, "Oh, I loved you in the play. We did not like the play, but we thought you were great." I was like, "Oh," I said like, "Thanks." I was properly like, that was rude to just walk up to me and say. One of the only reviews that exists of our show, honestly worth a read because it's completely unhinged, compares us to Al Qaeda and the Proud Boys and school shooters, and they're like, how could you, how dare you? Shakespeare would be disgusted. At least in my, you're like, you're welcome. My experience, it doesn't, like, it rarely comes sort of directly at me in a hateful way, but we definitely, you know, there's other things like people walk out of the show, our ticket sales have not been as high as some of the other offerings at the festival. So there's all these ways that we see the evidence of the pushback. And luckily for me, it hasn't been nearly as direct as it has been towards Nataki or that non-binary teacher that you mentioned who's getting lambasted by the internet. But yes, it is not a universally beloved classic at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. No, sir, no, ma'am. But I'm so proud to be a part of it. You have to rip it out of my hand.
That's all the time that we have. But thank you to all six of you so much for coming without this class. They have to go get credit for coming to the class. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for coming. Love you. Thank you, Bernadette.